So my name's Jeannie Rosner. Welcome. I know many of you and many of you I don't. So I look forward to meeting you all in person one day. I am the founder of Soul Food Salon. And basically our message and our mission is to educate and empower us all to be healthier. We hold monthly events. Historically, they were in person. Now we're doing them virtually. And we have a website, soulfoodsalon.com. Basically everything that we've done in the past, our events, our recipes, any articles that we've written, everything is there at soulfoodsalon.com. So go there and spend your day learning. So each year I partner with a different nonprofit, and this year we are partnered with Off Their Plate. And it's a fully volunteer run organization. It was started in March this year of 2020 when COVID started. And it was started by a third-year medical student at Harvard Medical Center. And she saw a huge need. So basically the hospital workers were not being fed, and the cafeterias were closing in the hospitals, and the restaurants were starting to close. And so what she did was she married the two together and created Off Their Plate. So the restaurant workers stayed employed and they provided meals to the hospital employees. It was a great win-win. So they've expanded now to 9 cities and they have a presence here in the Bay Area. And so I am partnered with them this year to help their effort. They've gone beyond just providing meals to healthcare workers. Now it's to the at-need community. So you can go on my website, soulfoodsalon.com, and on the main page, the About page, in the middle of the page, there's a little bit of information about Off Their Plate. There's a short video, and there's a specific link that Off Their Plate created for Soul Food Salon for donations. So please go there and make a donation. Essentially, $100 donation provides 10 meals for the at-need community, and it also provides 3 working hours for the restaurant workers. So it's a wonderful win-win for everybody. Also, I'm very active on social media, both all on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So everything is at Soul Food Salon, so follow along, please. A lot of health and wellness inspiration going your way. On YouTube, many of our salons have been recorded. This event will be recorded and will be up on our YouTube channel just until the end of the year. So if you want to go back and take a look at it, do that in a fairly quickly manner, or share it with other people. The Shauna is a woman on the move, and so she wants to keep her information fresh. Our next event is on December 9th and is with David Baum. He has a dual PhD in divinity and psychology. He's presented before. He's witty and funny and smart and wise. And his event topic is finding joy and humor in a pandemic. So as I said, today is a virtual format, obviously. Shauna will present for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we will have time for Q&A. She has a pretty strict stop at 12 because she has another commitment. So we'll do our best to get to questions that get posed. So let me introduce Shauna to you now. So Shauna and I met last, I would say November. I did a kind of a cold call to Shauna and said, your content is so interesting. I would love to present you. And so she said, sure. And we had originally planned for this salon to be in June of 2020. And then COVID hit, we conversed with each other and decided it wasn't the right time. So we tabled it. And then a few months ago, I kind of felt like it was the right time with everything that's going on in the world. And I asked her if she'd be interested. And she said, yeah. So today I present to you Shauna Shapiro. She is a true light and love. She is the author. She has a PhD in psychology. She teaches at Santa Clara University. She's the author of an amazing book. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's called Good Morning, I Love You. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend that you send it off to people as gifts for the holidays. Spend some time reading through it. It's really, really fabulously written, great anecdotes and great take-home messages on how you can actually bring mindfulness into your life. So she's internationally recognized expert in mindfulness and compassion, and she's going to take it away.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get up. There's my video. Can everyone see me? I guess I can't hear you, but I'm hoping you do. Thank you so much for the introduction. Luckily, I have a copy of the book right here, so you can see what we're talking about. I'm delighted to be here with you all. And before I start my PowerPoint presentation, I want to go into a bit of the science behind everything. I just want to take a moment to arrive here together. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes. You can also just look down at the floor, but let's just take a moment to arrive in our bodies with our breath in this moment. And see if you can set an intention for this time together. Why are you here? What drew you here? What's important right now? See if you can soften your body 5% more and just listen deeply. Maybe it's to find greater peace or clarity right now. Maybe it's to deepen your resilience and strength. Maybe it's just to learn. Whatever it is for you, see if you can silently connect with that intention and let it motivate you to be present, fully here. As you're ready, you can slowly let your eyes open. Okay, good. So I am going to share my screen and open this up. And I have been doing quite a bit of Zoom lately, so I'll let you know that if you want to see my face bigger, it's up to you on your screen. I can't control it. If you want to see the PowerPoints more, so you can toggle around with that in terms of what you want to focus on. So I'm going to be speaking about mindfulness and compassion. And the word mindfulness means to see clearly. So all we're trying to do is see clearly what's happening in this moment so that we can respond effectively, so that we can respond wisely. And when we practice mindfulness, when we see clearly, there are tremendous health benefits. It's actually quite surprising that just paying attention in this way that I'll describe to you strengthens your immune system, decreases stress, lowers cortisol, which is our stress hormone, improves our sleep. In fact, we recently published a study that we did at Stanford University showing how effective mindfulness is for insomnia. And there's some really new, exciting research showing that mindfulness practice increases telomerase, which is the enzyme that lengthens our telomeres, which are, as many of you know, the kind of best physiological predictor we have of aging and longevity. Mindfulness has also been shown to increase our cognitive capacities. It increases our focus and attention. How many of you have noticed your mind has already wandered? It's okay, bring it back. It increases our memory, our creativity, our innovation, and it increases our ability to shift perspective, to take a more systemic view of things, which right now is so important. It also has significant impact in the workplace. It reduces turnover, reduces sick days, increases productivity, and increases company loyalty. These are some of the companies that I've been working with, so you can see it's kind of gone mainstream. And finally, and this is where I'm focusing most of my research right now, is mindfulness has been shown to increase our compassion, both for other people, but also for ourselves, to increase ethical decision-making, which we definitely need right now, and to reduce cultural bias. So these, I think, are some of the most interesting and impactful areas that we can look at how mindfulness can really be of benefit. So mindfulness is a powerful tool. And I want to talk to you a bit more about what it is, because it's become so popular these days that it's kind of, in some ways, it's lost its meaning. Like, we use the word mindfulness all the time, but what do we mean by it? So my colleagues and I developed a model of mindfulness. This was all the way back in 2006, so it's been a long time now. But the model has 3 key elements: intention, attention, and attitude. So all 3 work together. And I'm going to speak to you about each one. The first is your intention. And as you recall, that's how we started, right? To really focus on, why am I paying attention? What's important? Our intention sets the compass of our heart. It says, this is the direction that I want to go. And I'll tell you a little story about intention. And this was some years ago when my son was about 9 years old. He's 15 now, so he's about 9 or 10. And I went to Europe to teach, and I was away for 2 weeks, which was the longest we'd ever been separated. And I remember flying home from Copenhagen and really starting to panic that I'd been away too long, that I had ruined our attachment bond, that I was a terrible mother, that I'd made the wrong choice. And I'm sitting there cooped up in the, the middle seat. And I remember making this conscious choice. Instead of shaming myself and beating myself up, I was going to set an intention that when I got home, the first thing I was going to do was connect with Jackson. So I wasn't going to unpack, check email, to clean up, do any of this stuff, that the first 24 hours were really going to be dedicated to my son. So I got home, and we live in Mill Valley, which, as many of you know, is very beautiful near the beach. And we decided to go to the beach, which we both love. So I start packing up his favorite foods and all his beach gear, and I'm trying to be the perfect mom. And I'm out at the car and I'm waving to the neighbors. I'm like, see, I'm home. See what a good mom I am. You know, it's not going to end well. So I go back inside and I'm like, Jackson, you ready to go? And he says, nah, I don't feel like it anymore. I said, what? We're going to the beach and I'm going to show you how much I love you. Damn it. So he gets on his swim trunks and he kind of walks out the door, and I'm already at the car and I am ready to go. I'm in agenda mode. I'm like, we got to get to the beach in time for the perfect sunlight and the picnic. And then luckily I remembered my intention. What's the most important thing? Jackson, right? I don't care if we go to the beach, right? I don't care if we get there, you know, at noon or at 1. What matters to me is reconnecting with my son, but I almost forgot. And so I walk over to where he's sitting. He was on our front porch. And I sit down next to him and he's watching these ants go by. And so I just sit down and I watch. And a couple of minutes go by, and then all of a sudden his little shoulder kind of leans into my body, and I feel his body begin to soften. And we're sitting there connected, sun on our backs. And that was the most important thing. So our intention helps remind us what we truly value, what we truly care about, and then it helps us realign, reset that compass in the direction we want to head. Okay, so that's the first element. The second element is our attention. And this is about training and stabilizing our attention in the present moment. Now, people often say that time is our most valuable resource. I believe it's our attention. Our attention is our most precious resource. This determines the entire trajectory of your life, is what you choose to pay attention to. And yet our attention is often tremendously fragmented, right? We're bombarded by millions, literally, of stimuli coming at us. And we have to choose what to attend to. But so often it's out of our consciousness and we just get sucked in. We're scrolling, we're watching the news, we're responding to beeps and pings and all this stuff. And our attention gets scattered. Not only that, research shows that our attention tends to wander 47% of the time. What this means is that we're not present 47% of the time. That's about half of your life that you're missing, that you're spaced out. So part of mindfulness is gently bringing our attention back into the present moment. If your mind has wandered, don't beat yourself up. Everyone else did too, right? In fact, if your mind hasn't wandered so far, I've been speaking for about 15 minutes. I want you to send me a note in the chat and I'm going to bring you into my laboratory and study your brain because you're the anomaly. Our minds wander. So, and this brings us to the most important and third element of mindfulness, which is our attitude. So when the mind wanders, what do we typically do, right? If we're trying to meditate or trying to practice, we beat ourselves up, we judge ourselves, we say we're bad at this, oh, I can't meditate. No, everyone's mind wanders. The key is to bring it back with an attitude of kindness and curiosity. In fact, this attitude, I believe, is the most important element of mindfulness. It's a way of relating to the world and to life with greater ease, greater curiosity, greater kindness. And I want to tell you a bit more about this. So when I was 17, I had spinal fusion surgery. So I had a metal rod put in my spine, and I went from this healthy, active teenager to lying in a hospital bed, unable to walk. And there was a lot of physical pain. But what really was challenging was my mind, that I was afraid I would always be in pain. I was overwhelmed by the fear. I was scared I wouldn't be able to go to college, or that no one would like me because I had these huge scars down my back. And luckily during that time I was introduced to mindfulness, and by my father actually. And I'm so grateful because it opened up this possibility that I could be happy again, that I could, begin again, really. And so once I'd healed, a few years later, I went to Thailand, and I went to this monastery, and I did a 2-week silent retreat. But up until that point, all I'd been doing was reading about mindfulness. I hadn't really ever meditated or had anyone teach me how to do it. And so I didn't really understand what it was all about. And I didn't speak any Thai, and the monks didn't speak a lot of English, but they explained to me that mindfulness was about paying attention, focusing my mind, and that I would train it by feeling my breath go in and out of my nose. So I began, right? You wake up at 4 a.m. every day, you sit in your posture, and you start breathing. And I went 1 breath, 2 breaths, my mind wandered off. I'd bring it back, 1 breath, 2, it wandered again, right? Lost in the future. What am I going to do when this happens? How will I handle that? Or ruminating about the past. If only I'd done this, or I could have done that. And no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't be present. Now, this was frustrating because I thought meditation was going to feel like this, peaceful, and immediately I would be at ease. And instead, it felt more like this. Like my mind was exploding. In fact, I've since learned we have 50 to 70,000 thoughts every single day, and that's what it looks like. So what do you do when you're not doing well at something? You try harder. So I tried hard. I was really trying to pay attention, and I still couldn't tame this monkey mind. And so I started to judge myself. What is wrong with you? You're terrible at this. Why are you even here? You're a fake. And then not only was I judging myself, I started judging everyone around me, including these innocent, sweet monks. Why are they just sitting here? Shouldn't they be doing something? Luckily, a monk arrived who spoke English. And when I asked to have an interview with him, I shared with him how I was struggling, how frustrated I was and impatient I was, and how terrible my mind was. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh dear, you're not practicing mindfulness." He said, "You're practicing judgment, impatience, and frustration." And then he said 5 words that I'll never forget. He said, "What you practice grows stronger. What you practice grows stronger." We know this now with neuroplasticity. Our repeated thoughts, behaviors, emotions, they shape our brain. So he helped me understand that if I was meditating with judgment, I'm growing judgment. Meditating with frustration, I'm growing frustration. He helped me understand that mindfulness is not just about attention. It's about how you pay attention, with kindness and with curiosity. So I came back to the United States after this, and I started my PhD program. And I was really, really dedicated to exploring mindfulness from a scientific lens, because what I had experienced during the 2 weeks at the monastery after I started bringing this kindness to myself was quite profound. I for the first time since my surgery, had experienced moments of being without pain, being without physical pain, being without emotional pain. And this sense of deep happiness came over me. This deep contentment that wasn't based on anything outside. Nothing had changed, right? I still had the metal rods in my spine, and I hadn't gotten a new job or a new boyfriend, or nothing had happened. I'd just been sitting at this monastery breathing, but I was happy and at peace. So I wanted to figure out what happened and if I could help other people with this. So I began my PhD program and eventually became a clinical psychologist and started doing research and clinical work. And what was interesting is that I worked with a lot of different people. I worked with women with breast cancer, 5 years at the cancer center. I worked with veterans. I worked with stressed out college students. I worked with very high level CEOs. And no matter who I was talking to from totally different walks of life, they were all telling me the same thing, that they were experiencing this tremendous sense of self-judgment, this judgment that they carried all the time, the sense of I'm not good enough, I'm not doing it right, I'm not a good enough mother, I'm not good enough in the workplace, there's something wrong with me, this sense of shame that they carried. And I knew what they were talking about because I'm like, yeah, I do that too. And I got really interested, like, what happens when we shame ourselves? Does it work? Does it help you be a better mother? Does it help you lose weight or exercise more? Do you stop drinking? You already know the answer. Shame doesn't work. It can't work. Literally, when we feel shame, the centers of the brain that have to do with learning shut down. So this is your brain on shame. What happens is the amygdala triggers a cascade of norepinephrine and adrenaline, floods the system, and it shuttles all of our resources away from the learning centers to survival pathways. Shame literally robs you of the energy and capacities you need to do the work of changing. Think about the implications of this. Think about the implications for our educational system, for our children, for parenting, for relationships. So what's the alternative? Because right now I'm really focusing on how we shame ourselves. So let's say you've made a mistake or there's something that you need to improve in your life, right? All of us have those areas of our lives. We don't just want to stay stuck, right? We want to change, but shame doesn't work. So the alternative is this attitude of kindness, this attitude that monk was explaining to me so many years ago. When we treat ourselves and our experience with kindness, it bathes our system in dopamine. It turns on the learning centers of the brain. It gives us the resources we need to change. Lasting change requires this attitude of kindness. So mindfulness then is all three elements: intention, attention, and attitude, all three working together. And I want to share a story. This is for me one of the most powerful stories about mindfulness. This was from working with a very high-ranking officer who had been mandated to a mindfulness class because of anger management issues. And so you can imagine he got to the class and he wasn't super excited to be there. But after a couple of weeks, he genuinely dedicated himself to the practices because he didn't want to keep having these anger outbursts. They were really harming not just his work, but also at home and his family. And so he really started practicing. And about a month into the course, he shared the story. He was at the grocery store, at a cart full of groceries, and he had just stepping into the checkout lane when this elderly woman with a young baby girl stepped right in front of him. And he started getting angry, right? He doesn't want someone to cut. But luckily he remembered his intention. He's really working on his anger management. He took a breath and he calmed down. But then this woman and the checkout clerk start like cooing and awing over the baby girl, how cute she is. And he's kind of rolling his eyes. And all of a sudden, The woman hands the checkout clerk the baby to hug. And he's like, are you kidding me? Is this a nursery? But luckily he doesn't say anything, and he takes a breath and he calms his anger down. And as he starts to calm down, he notices the little girl is pretty cute. An instant later, she's back in the arms of the woman. They walk out the door. And as the young checkout clerk is ringing up his groceries, he says to her, that little girl was cute. And she looks up and she says, really? Thank you. That's my daughter. And then she says, my husband was killed in Afghanistan last year. So I had to go back to work. And my mom brings her through my lane every day so I can give her a hug. So you can feel in that moment how grateful he was, right? How mindfulness puts us back in choice. It allows us to see clearly and then respond with wisdom and with compassion. So I want to take a moment now, and you can let your eyes close. And first, I want you to just create space for whatever you're feeling. So for me, that story always deeply touches me. So noticing the impact, the resonance. Feel your breath, feel your body, and welcome with kindness whatever is here. And then taking a moment to set an intention. So your intention could be to cultivate greater presence, greater peace, greater wisdom, greater compassion. It could be more specific, right? For me, sometimes it'll be, may I be more present with our children? Or may this practice help me cultivate gratitude, to really pay attention to what's beautiful, not just what's hard. So I set an intention, and sometimes may this practice just be of benefit in the world, right? We're never just practicing for ourselves. Everything you do has ripples, echoes out into this world. And then bring your attention into the body. I like to go ahead and just wiggle my toes and feel my feet just to kind of anchor my attention, because the mind, it's like a little puppy dog. It's going to wander off and you're like, come back, and it wanders again. You say, stay. So give the mind something to focus on, the body. So feel the feet, feel the calves, the shins, the knees, the thighs. Feel your seat and your hips and your buttocks. And then draw your awareness all the way up your spine. Let it spread out over the shoulder blades and shoulders, and you can just roll the shoulders forward and back. And then just let it pour down both arms into the palms of the hands. And now this is where it gets kind of interesting, so pay attention. Feel the palms of your hands, and I want you to see if you can feel any tingling or warmth, or even your own pulse. You can put one finger on your wrist if you're not feeling your pulse, just to really get a sense of that aliveness. Shifting your awareness into your belly, and begin to feel the movement of breath. As you inhale, the belly rises and fills with air. As you exhale, there's a release, a letting go. And I want you to really sense how you're oxygenating the body with each in-breath. And then with each out-breath, releasing carbon dioxide, releasing stress and tension, letting go. Inhaling, oxygenating the body. Exhaling, releasing, letting go. And then just continuing to breathe as you feel your entire torso breathing, the belly and the chest, and come up to the chest and I want you to see if you can feel your heart. Can you feel your heartbeat? So go ahead and just put one hand or both hands on your heart. You can give it a little pressure and just see if you can feel the heartbeat. Again, this is your aliveness. The heart is sending oxygen and nutrients to every cell in your body right now. The heart is taking care of you. Can you soften and receive this nourishment, this care? In fact, even notice your hands on your heart. That's a gesture of self-care, of your own kindness. Can you take it in? Maybe just a little bit, just 5%. Again, this is not about doing it perfectly. It's about practice. Whatever you practice grows stronger. Take another breath in and out. And you can put your hands back in your lap and just come up into the throat, up into your face, softening the jaw, softening the eyes, softening the forehead, temples, let the whole face rest. And then just go ahead and tilt the chin down a millimeter and let the back of the neck lengthen. And then just get a sense of the whole body resting here. Feel the breath. The mind wanders off, you bring it back. No big deal. Practice kindness. Practice curiosity. As you're ready, taking another breath in and out. And slowly you can let some light come back in through the eyes. Go ahead and stretch your arms above your head. I don't have any science behind the stretching, but it feels really good. Okay. Good. So take a moment. It always just takes a moment in that shift of consciousness. And what I want to invite is that even as the meditation ends, this mindfulness, this presence, this intention, attention, attitude can continue. So as I continue speaking, just for a little bit longer, see if you can practice mindful listening. One of the things I write about in my book is that we can learn these science-based practices and then bring them into our lives and really change not only the physical structure of our brain, but the texture and richness of our everyday life, because we're here for it. So I want to give you a little pep talk on the power of practice, why it's so important, not just to have an insight. Insight doesn't lead to learning, doesn't translate into learning. When you look at the brain science, we need to have the insight, of course, but then we need to practice and we need to integrate it into our long-term memory and into the ways in which we live it out in our daily lives. So I want to tell you a little bit about this science. As recently as the 1990s, we believed that the brain was static and fixed. It was called the doctrine of the unchanging brain. And it really wasn't only till recently that neuroplasticity was discovered and accepted. And what neuroplasticity tells us is that the brain is constantly changing, that it's never too late to change. It's never too late to rewire new pathways in the brain. No matter what your past and no matter what mistakes you've made and no matter what your current circumstances are, it's always possible. And one of the first studies on neuroplasticity was a study done in London with London taxi drivers. And what they found is that after very rigorous training, navigating the 25,000 streets of London, this is a map of London, that the visual spatial mapping part of their brain grew bigger and stronger. It's called cortical thickening, the growth of new neurons in response to repeated practice. That monk 20 years ago knew exactly what he was talking about. Whatever you practice grows stronger. What this means, as I shared, is that all of us have the capacity to change. We can even rewire our brain to be happier. And this is some of the most hopeful research that I've ever come across in my 20 years of being a professor. So in psychology, there's something called a happiness set point. And what we've discovered is that basically your happiness level doesn't change much throughout your life. So about, age 7 or so, there's a lot of genetic factors and then early childhood, but it kind of gets set. And you win the lottery, you have this blip of happiness, it goes back to baseline, you become paralyzed in a terrible accident, drop in happiness, back to baseline. This has been replicated over and over again. Our external circumstances don't change our level of happiness, right? So I don't care how many successes you have or how much money you make, or even if you got the new Tesla, it's not going to change your baseline level of happiness. What is so hopeful about this new research is that even though external changes will not shift our happiness, internal changes can. Happiness can be trained because the very structure of our brain can be modified. Think about that. Happiness can be trained because the very structure of our brain can be modified. And what I like to say is anything can be trained because the very structure of our brain can be modified. You can grow happiness, you can grow creativity, you can grow generosity, you can grow patience. I'm working on that one. It's not growing fast, but it's growing. So these are brains. This is a study done at Harvard by Dr. Sarah Lazar. And these are long-term meditators. And what they found is the areas of their brain that has to do with attention, memory, learning, emotion regulation, happiness, compassion, they grow bigger and stronger through practice. We all can learn practices that rewire the brain to grow these important resources. So the real question arises, what do you want to grow? What do you want to grow? So take a moment, let your eyes close, and I want you to just think about, invite in one key teaching, one moment during this conversation. I guess it's been one-sided so far, but hopefully it'll be larger in a moment. But I want you to think about one thing that you learned or that you experienced that you want to take with you, that feels resonant. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Shame doesn't work, or what you practice grows stronger. Or kindness. Kindness is what actually is going to help me change and transform. So take a moment, and I want you just to stay with this. I call them gold nuggets, this one gold nugget, this one thing that you want to take with you. So take a moment and really encode it in your long-term memory. Let that insight become part of you. It takes 20 to 30 seconds to encode something in your long-term memory to actually have the process of learning stick. Usually we try to fill ourselves with more information. It's just like trying to fill yourself with more food. It doesn't matter how nutritious it is. It's not good for you. So take a moment to just receive the nutrients of these teachings. And then as you're ready, you can slowly let your eyes open. Good. I'm going to ask you in a moment maybe to share some of your gold nuggets because I love hearing them. And I'm going to have some time for questions, but I want to first just take a moment, one, to say thank you. It's always a joy to share these teachings. They have profoundly impacted my life. I also want to say that if you have questions that you don't feel comfortable asking in a large group, which I understand, email me. This is my website, and I always respond to emails. I would love to hear from you. And why don't I stop this share, and I can just open it up to any questions. And if you have questions, the easiest way to do it is to type them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them. So wonderful.
So wonderful. Thank you, Shauna. That was just beautiful. And I love the time that we spent kind of grounding ourselves. Your voice is so therapeutic.
Thank you.
So maybe I'll just start off with a question. So you told the story of that gentleman who was in the military who had anger issues, and he was in the line at the grocery store. And so what are some things that we can do? Like what are some of the strategies that you gave him to be less volatile at the grocery store? Like I'm sure we've all been in that situation, maybe not the exact situation with a child and whatnot, but just impatience essentially in the grocery store. What are some of the things? Taking deep breaths? What are some of the...
Yeah. So first, what I would say is, it's kind of like if you're in an airplane and you're about to jump out and you want to make sure your parachute is ready, that I see mindfulness meditation practice on a daily basis. It's like you're stitching together your parachute so that in the hard moments, it's ready to go. So what I would say is you have to kind of back up a little bit before you get to the grocery store and really start taking time each day. It doesn't have to be mindfulness meditation. It could be whatever works for you, but taking time each day to kind of empty out the cup of stress so that we have space for things to come in, otherwise it overflows. And what the research shows is that through practice, we grow resilience, we grow these pathways. And so for me, taking time every morning to practice mindfulness and practice compassion allows me to have a little bit more of a chance of doing better at the grocery store. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so in the present moment, right, when something difficult happens, take a deep breath. It is our greatest ally. It is our greatest friend. When you take a deep breath, a couple of things happen. One is it stimulates the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve says, oh, it's time to go into parasympathetic instead of fight or flight. So it kind of tells the body, you're actually okay, you're safe. It's going to take an extra 5 minutes in the grocery line, but you're okay. The other thing I'll do is I'll feel my feet. And we started with that in the meditation, that when you feel your feet, it's a grounding practice, and it helps kind of get you out of that trance of like, oh my God, this is so terrible, and help you see things clearly. The mind does miraculous things. It can be your own best friend and also your own worst enemy. And I think learning how to see it clearly is incredibly helpful.
Great. All right, a couple questions have come in. Someone asked the question, how do I forgive someone who has deeply hurt me?
Thank you. That's a really important question. In fact, in my book, I have a whole chapter on forgiveness and practices to cultivate forgiveness, because forgiveness isn't something where you turn a switch, like, okay, now I forgive you. It's a practice, and it's really in some ways a direction instead of a destination. So you set the intention, may I let go of this burden of anger or resentment or hatred. And you set the intention to be open to forgiveness. Then it's a process of practicing that forgiveness. And what you need to be really clear about is that forgiveness doesn't mean you agree with, it doesn't mean you condone, it doesn't mean you actually even ever need to see that person again. What forgiveness means is that you're not going to carry the burden with you anymore. When you're holding on to anger, it's actually harming your physical body, it's harming your emotional well-being. And so forgiveness is about not closing down your own heart. Yeah.
Great. I like that. Someone asks, you said something about not dwelling in the past and not worrying about the future. Do you have like a nugget phrase that can help all of us with this practice? Like, something that can help us stay in the present and not worry about the future and the past.
So you are going to worry about the future and ruminate on the past. So the first thing is, don't fight it. Don't judge yourself when it happens. Be like, oh, I'm terrible at this. The mind's going to do that. So it's about gently coming back. The key to the practice. I remember one of my teachers said, notice the tone of your voice when your mind has wandered off. How do you bring it back? And you bring it back with kindness. And in fact, I've kind of created this little system where when I notice my mind has wandered off, I celebrate. I'm like, great job noticing, because you're back. The moment you notice, you're back. And so it's this kind of celebration and appreciation for my effort and my dedication, instead of the shame and judgment that I happen to have wandered off. So know that you're going to do it. And you really want to grow that muscle of bringing it back with kindness and with gratitude that you're not missing your life anymore. You're already back.
Great. I like that. Do you have a simple practice or two, such as a body scan, that you can direct us to? Do you have a
Yes.
of meditations with that? Or
If you go to my website, which was drshaunashapiro.com, there's free body scan, loving kindness meditation. I have all my meditations in Spanish as well. So please go and check it out. They're also, of course, in the book. The intention of the book was to kind of gather all of the science and all of the practices and all the stories together in a really simple but powerful roadmap, so that people could take this on, by themselves. Or, I've been doing a lot of book clubs, as you might imagine, which has been really sweet too, for people to do these practices together.
I love that. So I teach a lot, and I personally need to always understand the why. So I love that you have all that science in there. It's not overwhelming for those that are not science people. It's just enough to really kind of make it really impactful.
Enough to calm the brain down and be like, okay, I'll give this a chance, instead of like constantly criticizing it. The brain kind of takes the back seat, and then you can engage in some of these powerful practices that, that the mind might say, oh, that's mushy, or that's, woo woo. And the science is what helps. It's helped me. I'll tell you that. I needed the science.
Right. So in your book, you mentioned it briefly today. You talk about the 5% principle.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes. So for anyone who can relate to perfectionism, this was one of the things that has helped me the most, is just trying to shift 5%. So trying to pay attention 5% more, or to bring 5% more kindness, or to be 5% more patient, where it wasn't trying to do it perfectly, and it wasn't an all or none game. It was, I'm going to do a little bit. And that's really how change happens, is through these small increments. And then all of a sudden there'll be kind of a burst of change, but it's really kind of planting the seeds. And so I really encourage people to be gentle with themselves, to set ridiculously unambitious goals, right? After you hear those, don't say, I'm going to go meditate 30 minutes a day every day for the rest of my life. Say, I might try 1 minute before bed and see if it helps me sleep better. Start small.
Right. I've got another question. What is the practice of bringing in kindness? Is it thinking about one's strengths rather than one's weaknesses?
Yes, it's I love this practice. I didn't lead it through with you, but there's a loving kindness practice. And we practice orienting the mind to sending kindness out to the people we love. So even right now, you can just take a moment, close your eyes, and think of someone that you love, that you're grateful for. It could be a grandchild, a puppy dog, a best friend, whoever pops in your mind. Don't worry about it. And if you have multiple children, you can do it later with the rest of them. So just choose one person. And just notice how it kind of warms your heart when you think of them, and just wish them well. Wish them well. May they be peaceful and happy, sending out these kind thoughts. And then see if you can turn that toward yourself, and see if you can wish yourself well. May I be peaceful and happy. And you might notice it's a little harder to send it to yourself, but again, it's just a practice. Can I treat myself with kindness? Can I care for myself? And then you can let your eyes open. Good. So So that's really a practice of kindness. And, the title of my book, Good Morning, I Love You, is about greeting myself with kindness every single day when I was going through a really difficult divorce. And instead of waking up with this shame and this pain and this fear, I woke up and I just greeted myself with kindness. And it's not that I felt it every day, right? Some days I felt like I was faking it, but at least I was planting that seed instead of, tumbling all this shame on top of myself.
Mhm. Great. What do you think about all the mindfulness apps? Are there any that you think are better than others? I mean, I know it's all
Yeah.
individual.
So, again, I'm a scientist. And so I am really kind of waiting for the science to come out that's a little bit more complete about how effective they are. I think there are some apps that, have a lot of integrity and are really using top meditation teachers to help develop them. And I think it's a good idea. I think we're trying to figure out how we can make this accessible, but I can't really recommend an app right now.
Okay. I just find it so fascinating. I mean, when I was in med school, we thought the brain was stagnant. Like what you had is what you had, and it was probably just going to diminish over time. And I love that we can change our brain, and the whole concept of neuroplasticity is so amazing. And that when we practice mindfulness, we can grow it bigger and stronger, and it's
Yeah.
just fabulous.
It's such a hopeful message, and it's so inspiring. When my grandpa was 82, he developed pretty severe osteoarthritis, and I was in my late 20s and I just finished my PhD, and I was like, mindfulness will save everyone, which is not true. I don't think it's a cure-all. But I said, hey, Grandpa, I've been working in the hospital with people with chronic pain. It's been effective. Can I teach it to you? 82, Protestant, never meditated. And what was really beautiful is he was open to it, and we started practicing, and his pain began to shift. And what he said was, which I loved, he said, my pain didn't go away. You didn't cure me, but now I relate to it differently. And instead of being afraid of it or overwhelmed by it or angry at it, he's like, I'm able just to see it. And it was such a beautiful kind of teaching, and to see the way he was able to shift, at such an elder age. First, his humility to get taught by his 20-something granddaughter, but also just that capacity that never goes away.
Right. That's wonderful. So this is great. I think that might be all the questions that we have. Anybody else with any other questions? So as I said, so Shauna, tell us your website one more time, drshaunashapiro.com.
ShaunaShapiro.com. Like I said, you can email me there, and maybe let's just take one moment to let our eyes close and really see if you can just take in the nutrients, the nourishment of this time all together, and offer that it be of benefit in this world. That we've all come here and volunteered our time and our energy and our commitments, and just offer that these teachings be of benefit, that we take them out into the world and they support our families and our friends and our colleagues and really everyone we come in contact with. And then take a moment to thank yourself for showing up. And when you're ready, you can let your eyes open. I just want to thank you so much for having me.
Sure.
Please go out into the world and buy this for the holidays. It's the best under 20 gift that you can get. Give the gift of
I highly recommend it. And follow Shauna on her social media platforms. Follow Soul Food Salon on our media platforms. I'm getting some text coming through on my computer right now saying I ordered the book. So I think people are ordering it. So it's a great attribute, and just a fabulous message for right now for all of us, in particularly right now. I think we all need to give ourselves loving kindness and share it with others, and spend some time being mindful and being in the present.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, so this will be up on our YouTube channel probably for a few months, and then so share it then with yourself and with others, and follow us along. And again, thank you, Shauna, for being such a gift to us today.
Thank you so much. All right.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.